Welcome to Albion TV presents the AO Daily Show, your source of real news in an unreal world, keeping you up to date on the latest news, events, and the great community of Albion Online. Today is Tuesday, the 10th of December, and I am your host, Shozen One, and sitting way over there, nowhere near me, far, far, far away, but still somehow with us in spirit, it's my co-host, Bogul. How are you doing today, Bogul?
Hello. I'm doing good. I just woke up. Oh, wait. We're streaming, right? What?
We are streaming, Bogle. We are live right now.
Oh, shoot. Maybe I better go put on pants. Yeah, why don't you tell everybody what we do today, and I'll be right back.
I guess what we do is we disturb the new players to the world of Albion by introducing them to us, the not quite ready for primetime players of the Twitch world, as we can't even figure out how to put on pants before we stream. At least he doesn't have a camera, so it doesn't really matter.
Haha. Haha. Haha.
Wait, what? No, okay, that's not the way we wanted to start the show. Today is about new players. Today is Newbie Tuesday. Yes. And aside from news and the like, what we'll do on Tuesdays is tend to try to present the same basic elements of Albion over and over again for the huge number of new players that seem to join every week. It's kind of crazy. I don't know if you guys have spent any time in the Crossroads, but there are at least 500 people there right now, which is the same number of people who are in Fort Sterling.
So what do we do with this show then? Usually we have a daily news show where we talk about all the Albion news, some gossip, some community updates. We interview players. We talk about recent happenings in the world of Albion. And today, why don't we start off with the news as usual? And then we can get into answering some of the recent newbie questions that we collected. Oh, by the way, if you are in chat right now and you want to ask questions that we can pick up after the news, type them in right now so we can start collecting some of these. One more PSA, of course, we are not official developers of Albion, right? We are community. What is our title, Shozen?
Community support. We support the community.
So
right?
Take everything we say with a truckload of salt and correct us if we are wrong.
Yes, that's what the internet exists for. I believe the internet exists for two things. One of which is to prove us wrong. The other of which we would have to change our settings to talk about. So let's talk about the Avalonian invasion season and try to present that a little bit in a way that new players can understand. Let's start talking about invasions to begin with. What we've been doing for many, many months now is doing a thing called seasons. And the seasons, we're on to season, I guess this is like our 8th season, Bogle?
Yes, 8.5.
But it's the 8th season, but it's not titled season 8. It's titled the Avalonian Invasion because it's not going to last the full length of time. It's only going to last 2 months as it leads up to the biggest patch we have ever experienced in the game called Queen, which will be redesigning the entire game as far as high-end gameplay goes and how the world is divided and how it's split amongst its players. But one of the things that will remain the same are these things called invasions. Now, what we do is in the beginning of every season, and then 2 more times during the season, generally about a month later, is we clear the entire board of anybody who owns a resource territory. Ownership is lost. NPCs invade. And then on invasion day, players are able to capture territories and regain control of the Outlands by defeating NPCs on top of the territories while defending themselves from players. Now, we have a great video of that, as we just had an invasion day this past weekend. And we have the EU one that went off at 18 UTC and the NA one that goes off at 1 UTC the following morning. And you can check out the ZVZ action as we covered it live on a 15-minute delay last Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, but that's not what we want to talk about today. Mostly, I think I wanted to get through a little bit of news. You have, if you are a new player, you might not quite know where stuff is. So there is the official homepage of Albion, right? There is, let me show that on stream. There we go. Bloop. So that's the official homepage, right? But there is the news section, of course, and then if you want to stay up to date, you can look around these parts here. But if you are a little bit more advanced, you can also look into the forums. And then the news and announcements has a little bit more detail usually and a little bit more discussion. So we wanted to mention that briefly. It's always a good idea to keep an eye on these. You can even set your forum account to follow these to stay up to date on the latest of the late. You can see, for example, here there's some patch notes, some other reminders, and that was the invasion that happened here this Saturday. The VODs, as Shozen mentioned, are here on Twitch. If you want to click on the channel, you can see these live. It's always a big spectacle with a lot of
now, Bogul,
easy action.
As we talked about how this season itself was special, how it's not just this season that's special as an invasion season, but each invasion is slightly special, isn't it? Because we are actually ramping up with each invasion that we have. Not only the time between them, it's getting shorter, but the number of mobs out there to experience and to fight is increasing. We are adding new ones to the game as well. We just added new spearmen, new drones, Avalonian drones, and what was the other one? A mechanical eagle of some kind, Bogul. Can you pull that guy up on screen? Because he looks freaking cool.
If I can find it, yes.
Okay.
There.
I do understand that a lot of people are very upset with the drones. I don't understand why. I think that they're a great way to get some solo fame right now. I believe, what are they, like 10K a pop? And you can solo them?
Yeah. There we go. The wing guard is the name.
And I'm hearing that this eagle guy, he's not the easiest guy to put down. It takes a little bit of work. You're going to have to put a little bit of effort. Comes with a couple of other friends, generally a couple of spears along with him. I like it.
Yeah, so let's to finish up the news part of the show. That happened on the weekend, so we are sort of evolving or progressing the current season. That is sort of an in-between season between the guild seasons that we had in the past, leading up to the big finale on with Queen on January 20th. The other thing that you might have seen is that a lot of guilds are, competing sort of for the rankings for the top spots. And that's what you see if you look on the top and on the rankings here, with the various guilds being in the top, how far does it go? 3,000 of guilds that are competing for this. And here on the show, we usually do a war report once a week where we showcase, some current progress of guilds, talk to people who are either leading or are very involved with some of these guilds. Sometimes it's recruitment officers as well, who tell us a little bit about them, and sometimes try to, recruit a few new people. If you are still looking for a guild, then we do have a few interviews. I think every Tuesday we interviewed somebody who was sort of connected to a new player guild for the last 3 weeks, right?
Well, it was a few weeks in a row. 2 weeks ago we had a show. 1 week ago we had an interview. 3 weeks ago we had an interview. 4 weeks ago we had a show. So it's like every other week it seems to be we have an interview, but it's not intended to be that way. The intent is to just mix it up and always have the availability of people for new players to come over and ask questions about and go, how do I get started in the game? I just started. I need some help getting into it. Where can I just find some help? And that's what Newbie Tuesday is about, is to just, whether it's us doing an interview and introducing people who've already solved some problems, or us just being here to answer questions and looking at a few problems that we've seen recently that keep coming up and answering a couple of those. And we'll probably do that today. I think we have a couple of things that we're going to talk about. I think the map was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But we did just want to get through it.
What's the most common question that new players ask, Shozen?
Where do I craft T4?
Here's the map. There we
And
go. And then you're probably in one of the cross areas, and then it's
yeah,
the cities. That's right next to it. And there's 5 of
yeah,
them.
we've talked at length. If you're a newer player and you want some background information, Tuesdays shows are really good for you because they generally will look at a number of different subjects and try to lay them out for you and help you get ahead in something. I think it was 2 weeks ago we actually talked about the idea of getting out of the crossroads and getting into the new player cities. And we spent a lot of time talking about that. So if you're a new player who's in the crossroads right now, my main piece of advice would be get out and go to a player city, one of the 5 around it. Bridgewatch, Limehurst, Martlock, Fort Sterling.
And Thetford. And try to find a guild while you're on the way to there. Because that's, I think, the best game experience is with a guild.
Yes.
And if you are, I mean, there are some exceptions for very special cats among you people, but most people would, especially when they start out with the game, have the best game experience when they can play together with other people. So that's, in my mind, the 2 things you should do first.
I would say this, Bogul.
Yeah.
If you're going to go get into a guild, don't just join the first guild, because this is one of those mistakes that new players make. They know that joining a guild is very important. Yet what they do is they get involved in the first guild that invites them. And there's an unfortunate thing that happens to new players is there's a cooldown of 2 days. When you join a guild, you cannot join another guild for another 2 days, 48 hours. So if you end up joining a guild you don't like because you just joined the first one that invites you and you find out they have a 48% tax and they don't do anything and they don't supply you with any new gear or any direction on how to get started, and then you leave, you're going to spend 2 days just frustrated that you can't join another guild. So before you hit that, yes, I accept your invitation button, learn a little bit about the guilds that are available to you. There are many tools available. There's the Reddit, which is a great source of information for joining guilds.
Really? The Reddit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Reddit is actually pretty good for joining guilds. There's always, if you see somebody up there like 3 days in a row posting about how their guild is recruiting and wants to be actively involved with new players, guess what?
Okay.
They're probably actively involved with new players and spending time working towards bringing you into the fold. And if they're spending that much time doing it, just trying to get you in, hopefully, inside they're doing even more to keep you there.
Well, I sometimes see Reddit as one of the filters to use to know where not to apply. The basic tool I would suggest is maybe the guild recruitment forums on the official Albion forums as well. There is an in-game chat as well, but let's assume you are sort of past that point and sort of have a group around you to start off already, because then
forums are a good source too. I didn't want to, I feel like I was a little cut off there. I had an idea of, there's 3 different places you want to go. You want to go to the forums, the official forums. You want to go to Reddit, the official subreddit, and you want to go to the official Discord. Now, the official Discord will do a number of things. It won't just give you the information that is on the official Discord. What it'll do is allow you to to communicate with anybody who uses that Discord. By being in the same channel as them, you then get access to the ability to send tells, send PMs. Now, that is really big here in the world of Albion, because Albion isn't just the game you're playing right here. There's a game outside of the game. There is a large political world, a large social world that exists in Discord, on Reddit, on the forums, on Twitch, on Mixer, to a lesser extent, the other social medias such as Twitter. But Albion is not just played in game. It's played outside of the game. And the sooner that you as a new player can get involved in that outside world, outside of the game, the sooner you'll be included in that really cool content that is available inside the game. Those castle fights, those ZVZs, those GVGs, those territory takeovers, the invasion day action, all that stuff, war camps, city fights, home plot fights, all these things are made easier by your connection to the outside of game.
Yes,
It's
yes, yes, yes. Okay, so let's assume again that you now have your basic, how do you say this, horses in the stable, and you sort of have a
yeah, you got
group.
lots of horses in the stable.
You sort of know that you're past the point where you want to unlock
Of no
D4. You
return.
have a few friends now. You're sort of in the city. You've leveled up a little bit, and now you're in this thing called Fort Sterling, and you look around and you're like, all right, what do I do now? And then you usually come from, I would say, the Mountain Cross area. You might look around yourself and see a bunch of zones, colors, things that you don't quite understand. Were you confused about the naming, or rather the geography of Albion when you first joined, or was that super easy for you?
Okay, when I first joined the world of Albion, there was nothing. There was no information available.
Uh-huh.
And so when I started playing, every little bit of information that is now in front of you all at once got delivered to me a tiny piece at a time. The idea that levels, like that zones even had levels, was revealed over time to me. When I first started playing, there were two types of zones. There was the full PvP zone and the not full PvP zone.
Oh, that has changed quite a bit, doesn't it?
That has changed quite a bit. Now we have 4 different types of zone. We have
Blue,
your
yellow,
blue
red,
zone,
and black. Yeah.
which is your tutorial and new player zone, like the crossroads and the zone right outside the crossroads, where you can't be attacked. It's just full PvE for level 1, 2, and 3. You can just learn the gathering, learn the fighting basics. Then you can get to the yellow. Yellow is where PvP first starts to change. Bogey, you want to bring up one of those yellow map zones for me? In a yellow zone, we have conditional flagged PvP that is not lethal under most circumstances. And I say most circumstances because there is a circumstance in which it is lethal, and I'll get to that in just a moment. In most PvP in a yellow zone, you just simply get knocked to your knees, which will cost you a repair bill and part of your inventory if you have stacks of resources. So you'll lose about 25% of your resources, and 25. Actually, they changed their ability at loss, didn't they, Bogle?
But yet the numbers aren't important.
Okay, but the idea is that it's a conditional PvP where, in order to engage in PvP, one of the people involved has to be flagged. What is flagged? You say. Now, if you look on your character, Bogle, go to your character real quick for me. On the top left, you have your avatar. Now, if you see that little shield right there, Bogle is currently not flagged for PvP. If he was out in the world, he could click on that shield and a timer would start filling. And at the end of that, he would be flagged for PvP. The shield would go to a crossed sword situation. And then at that point, he could attack anybody out in the world in a yellow, red, or black zone. He couldn't do it in a blue zone, but he could still do it in a yellow, red, or black. Now, if you're not flagged, you can't attack everybody. You can only attack people who are flagged. So if you see another non-flagged player out there in a yellow or red zone, you won't be able to attack them. But if you see a flagged player, somebody who's now, they'll show up red on your screen. They'll have like a slight icon change next to their name, and you'll be able to attack them even if you yourself aren't flagged. Now, in a red zone, those flag mechanics still exist. They're the same exact in a red zone. However, the difference is that if you are in PvP in a red zone, that PvP is lethal. You can die and lose everything on you. Except for your silver
and gold.
Except for your silver and gold. That stays on you. The stuff that's in your inventory, your bag, everything that you're wearing, all that falls to the ground when you die, and you're transported to the nearest player city or home that you have bound yourself to, or I believe towers as well, if you own one. Now, black zones are different. You don't need to flag for black zones. Once you go there, everybody who goes there is a hostile player unless they are either grouped with you or part of your alliance/guild. If they're grouped with you,
black zones, of course, are all the 3 continents you see way in the north. That's Mercia, Cumbria,
there's 5
Siluria,
now,
Gluvia, and Anglia.
Yeah, that's a big spot. And on January 20th, that area that Bogle is currently popping around, called the Black Zones, the outlands, if you will. That's all going to be reworked to be a new continent, one single continent that we'll be fighting for in a new way. Currently, territories, if you go ahead and zoom in on that map, Bogo, and show the territories. Currently, territories in the black zones are gained through two different ways. On Invasion Day, they're gained through PvE and territory capture by defeating the PvE boss and claiming the territory. And second, by 5v5 guild versus guild warfare that is done by either controlling a war camp and declaring it. No, before Queen. Right now. I'm talking about right now.
Oh, okay.
Right now, this is how it's done. Right now, there are two ways. One on Invasion Day and one through GVG 5v5 matches. There we go. And what you have to do is each territory has a timer window on it where during the day for a few, I believe it's for 2 hours currently, you can declare an attack actually, you can declare an attack anytime. Right now, Bogle? Didn't they change that? 24 hours beforehand up to... Yeah, okay, it doesn't matter. You can just declare the attack. And then the next day, at that zone's particular timer, you will launch the attack, and your 5 people will match up against their 5 people, and the winner of that 5v5 match will then take control of it. Tier 1 Jank says, Shozen, I think you should mention dying in territories in a yellow zone. That confuses some. Yes. Now, I did mention that you can die in a yellow zone or even a blue zone under one particular circumstance, Bogle. Can you go to your city of choice right now and show us the faction War Master?
There we go. It's a bit busy, but every royal city has their own War Master that's corresponding to a specific faction. Right now here I am in Limehurst. Reset camera. The green guys. And there at that guy you can click the thing and do the enlist into a faction procedure. And it says that once you do that, you have full loot PvP applying in all zones, including blue and safe zones. This, however, only applies to other players who are flagged for a different faction. That is right now probably the minority, but it's possible. And then you open yourselves up in case you might forget to unflag or something. So that is the one exception that Shozen was talking about.
Yeah, and it can be a fairly dramatic exception for some players who don't realize that they've now become vulnerable everywhere. And you become vulnerable everywhere. Now, there are reasons to faction flag. Bogle, there are unique things that you can get from faction flagging, correct?
Yes, you can. Well, while you do activities in the world, you get certain standing with that faction, and this you can then later on trade in for some nice things that are either, you can get a puppy for making a mount, or you can get
a puppy.
Hearts that can be stand-in resources for refining, or you can get crests that can then be used for crafting capes. And these capes are very popular in PvP and just in general.
They are the best capes in the game. They do way more than your standard cape, which just gives energy. Ooh, we have another good question here. Hold on. Let me get back to it. Do you know about the dual scam trick? If yes, warn new players. There are a couple of things that people do in the banks of Albion that you could consider scams. One of the most basic scams is the duel scam, where you look at a player and they have gear that is similar to yours and they say, let's duel, and you agree to that duel. But then the next thing you know, they are overcharged and have massively overpowered gear compared to yours, and they kick the crap out of you and steal your silver. Be very careful when... Oh, they go in naked now? Oh, they're going naked? Great. All right. If you get dueled by a naked person for 100,000 silver and you accept that and then you lose, come on, man. Don't.
The other one that you mentioned is that right now there are some gambling scams. So sometimes at the marketplace or in other locations, there's people who advertise their Twitch stream where you can then roll like a casino. But I forgot his name, but a community member recently made a little video about it where he explained how they do it. They basically use an OBS overlay that then they control the outcome of the rolls. So I would venture to guess that all of these are set up to be fake. Yeah, so be mindful of that. But you had something else. I think you were going somewhere with the outlands and zones and topic there. No?
Should we talk more about the many ways in which there are PvP in the Outlands and how going forward the PvP in the Outlands will be different than it is now? Because I can talk about that.
I mean, that is where you want to eventually graduate to, right? So the theoretical progression in my mind, at least, is always going from the cross to the city, and then finding a group you sort of like, and then trying to see whether or not your heart is suitable for the harsh outlands lifestyle.
Yeah, there's a progression. Yeah,
because some people, they need to slowly adapt to this idea that you can lose your stuff and that's okay. Some people need to get used to the idea that you can die in PvP and it's not the end of the world. Of course, with the advice always that you should only take what you can lose multiple times over. But once you have that, then you're sort of looking for a place to, I would almost say, live permanently.
Yes.
I mean, you would go back and forth to do trade runs and sell stuff to the larger population, but yes, let's assume that you found your group and you guys are looking for living and carving out your spot in the world. How and where would you go about that?
Well, I think that what you have to do is you talked about it a little bit. You start over there in the tutorial zone. You work your way to the cross. From the cross, you're going to go to one of the player cities. Once you get there, it really is establishing your skills as a player. Learn the basics of the game. Learn how to PvP and PvE in the game by trying to find yourself a good, decent guild that is active. Now, if you're lucky, you might find one that is active in the black zone. And you don't really need to, once you get to the point where you're in the red zone, the black zone really isn't that different. There's just more advantage to being in the black zone. The red zone is good if you're in a small group and you want to be able to see when the enemies are coming and know exactly how many enemies are in the zone. Because one of the advantages of the red zone is that, well when you're in a blue zone, you notice over on the bottom by your map, it'll tell you how many friendly people are there. But when you're in a red zone, it'll tell you how many unfriendly people are there instead. When you get to the black zone, it doesn't do that any longer. Your only indication of enemies are when 10 or more of them group together and create a bubble. Now, other than that, every advantage is in the black zone. There's a higher resource rate return, there's more fame, and there's more silver. Soon, with Queen, you'll be able to live there just by having a guild and placing down a thing called a hideout. Currently, we have home plots, which are very few and far between. And those are mostly owned by older, well-established guilds that are able to fight for them and defend them in 5v5 battles. Not everyone. Some are defended by others, and some have gotten lucky through mercantile and other political means. But in the new world, starting on January 20th, any guild that can get its resources together and go out to the black zone can plop down a hideout. And if they can bring some ZVZ forces to defend it once a day, they can stay there. And from what I understand, it's going to be a lot harder kicking somebody out than defending your territory. So if you get there and you establish yourself, you can dig in like a tick. Stay there pretty indefinitely if you can just come out and defend yourself when needed.
Yeah, I'm showing off one of the current ones right now. It's a bit hard to see, but you see that you can build various buildings here, and then you can sort of establish your own little city there with all the different things you would ever need. It will look a little bit different come Queen. There will be, they will have a different shape. You have to place them down. They won't exist as, squares.
Home plots won't be there anymore.
No.
The home plots that you currently have will be gone. We will have a new farm plot that is much like a resource plot, and a new resource plot that is just different.
We
Like
don't actually know how they will be, and the final design isn't finished yet, right?
we've seen test versions, and we don't know what the final design is yet. But we can say that they're going to be different. And the way that it works is no longer that you get currently the way that towers work in the world is that they spawn items directly in their square of influence. And those items, if you pick them and you're of the guild that owns that tower, you get a 50% drop rate increase.
You mean resources?
Resource,
for territory.
For territory.
Okay.
Did I think I said that.
You said items. I was like, what? No, towers
no,
don't
not
spawn
items.
items.
No, sorry. No, my bad. No, it's for the resources that you harvest inside the territory. It has an increased drop rate. Like you get more. Like your resource return rate goes up. Now, in the new world, the towers will each have levels, and the level of that tower will affect the drop rate of the entire zone. Now, I don't know if that's going to affect it for just the people who own the tower, or if it will be for anybody in that zone. Like if it just improves the zone. Like back in the day, they had this idea of these what do they call them? Those the refining nodes that they were going to have that were going to pump out resources once a day. And
I remember, but
it's hard. I don't even want to go there. But the idea was that you would be able to upgrade something that the more you upgraded it, the more of a benefit it would be to you, and the more it would draw your opponent to it. And the idea, I believe, with this new map is to make the towers and the zones around them very desirable, not only to the people who own them, but as raiding situations for people who know that there's going to be juicy stuff around them. And that could be better resources or players who are gathering those resources. And the idea is to make the content much more about people living in areas, defending their areas, and raiding the homes of their enemies. Not just raiding and killing their mages, which are some NPC which have very little value other than their energy output at the end of the day and their season points. For your average guild member, that doesn't have a lot of value, other than mostly pride, knowing that they did a good job. But when it's your resources, when it's your players, which are the thing that are drawing your enemies in to raid, then you do have a stake in it. You do want to defend that because that's your resource. Anybody in the guild can go get that resource if you level up your skill. And everybody in the guild wants to defend their guild mates when they are the resource that's getting harvested by the enemies.
By the way, I just realized we are about 3 minutes over our usual time. We usually would do about half an hour of show, quote unquote, before we switch over to basically just asking or answering questions from chat. So I think we slowly need to wrap up our little newbie explanation excursion here and move to the next thing. Okay. Is there anything else we should mention about zones, geography? I mean, other than it's basically your tutorial zone, then you have the next interesting thing as your city, then you're on the royal continent, there's a bunch of different cities, and then in the cities you can later find out portals that lead you to the outlands. I mean, that is the 1, 2, 3 there, but maybe we should do sometime in the future a little bit more.
We could talk about locks. We should talk about locks and stuff like that on next Tuesday. Maybe do a little bit about the locking situations, maybe the way that GVGs are actually launched, and get into the next level of these same topics. Maybe we can even talk about some of the rewards and ways that you participate in faction warfare. So we have some early stuff today, and we'll get into the next level of these same topics next week. Okay. Unless I have an interview. Yeah, but we can try to get into the same topics next week, and what we'll do is we'll let newer players know next week that it's basically a part 2 and send them back to the first one if need be.
Okay, so
but we will be back. What I was going to say is we're going to go away for like 2 minutes and then come back with overtime, and we'll be right back here with you guys and discussing whatever it is you want to talk about.
We discussed Twitch. Yes. Okay. Da-da.
And let me just make sure I did pull a raffle. Let me see what we got coming up. I need some more people to get into this raffle that I currently have running. So hopefully when we get back from our overtime, you will have filled it up. But yeah, if you're not one of those people who's listening right now, Bogul, like who's not here right now and can't participate in the raffle, guess what they can do?
Send fan mail via the post.
I was going to say they could go to soundcloud.com or youtube.com /AlbionTV and watch us at their leisure or listen to us whenever they like. But if there's somebody who needs it live, needs it now, on demand right now, it's twitch.tv /Albion Online. That's where you see the live show every single day, 18 UTC, Monday through Friday, we do this show, and at 19 UTC and 20 UTC on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, we do additional content. We do Albion Live, where we watch Crystal GVGs and then regular GVGs at the 20 UTC time slot. Which, Bogul, oh my God, how are we going to be changing this up when it gets to the new world? I have no idea.
I think we'll probably stalk a bunch of random people and pretend they didn't see us. Something like this.
Okay.
We'll have to become professional stalkers instead of professional casters, and then see what we can see. And with that, see you in a few minutes after
This dude's creepy.
the pee break. Be right back.
Guy's creepy. Creepy.
Bye.
See you in a few.